Good morning, this is AJ DeGroot, Mariners VP of Operations, and you're here with another episode of Future Ready Freight. I'm super excited about today's topic. We're here with Michael Caney of Highway. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks AJ, I appreciate it. My name is Michael Caney. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Highway. We're a freight technology startup based here in Dallas, focused squarely on carrier identity and helping brokers build a safe and secure network.
I think the best way to start here is, where did Highway come from? What was the idea? How did you get started? Let's hear about it.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say Highway is the culmination of a couple of different people trying to solve a problem in a couple of different ways. And here's what I mean by that. So Jordan Graft is our founder and CEO.
Yep.
And Jordan, before Highway, so Jordan's a serial entrepreneur, started a couple of technology companies and scaled them and sold them. But he started the TriumphPay business unit inside of the Triumph banking organization. And in doing so, he became friends with a lot of us, freight brokers. So AJ, I've been a freight broker for 20 years. Like, this is I have 20 years of doing this. I've done 2 years in tech and 18 of it as a freight broker. And so there were two things that Jordan noticed. One, in his own tables at TriumphPay, there was corruption. There were bad actors and fraudsters trying to get in. He also noticed that all of his friends were struggling with this whole digital connection piece. You know, the thing that we've been talking about in the business for years is like digital freight matching and digital connection and book it now, buy it now, whatever, and we've struggled with it. I mean, I think it's fair to say that none of that has like taken root the way we thought it would. And so Jordan's thesis was, this is an identity problem. So coming from a finance background and banking, and he was at JP Morgan, he said the whole world runs on this KYC, know your customer, proof of stake. And yet brokers and motor carriers are just filling out packets and going at it. Well, no wonder they can't digitally connect, because there's a lot of fraud. So how do we fix the fraud problem? And that's where Highway came from. Jordan is a dog on a bone when it comes to a problem. Like, if he sees something, he doesn't really rest until he figures out how to solve it. And so that was the impetus, right? He got together with some brokers that wanted him to fix this problem. He had the ability to do it, and it just kind of went from there, man. And we just kept iterating. I would say that my favorite thing about our company is not only do we have exceptional technology, we really pride ourselves on listening to customers, like talking to freight brokers and finding out what they need rather than trying to be the smartest man in the room. And so that's the seed, and that's kind of where we are today.
I can tell you our collaboration session when we started together was very thorough, very detailed. I got an opportunity to get every piece of our contract in that I needed. It was not rushed. And we got it done. It was very, very rewarding getting that process
It's
done.
good, man.
So,
and we pride ourselves on being flexible in that. Like, we don't want you to experience 30 days of lag when you request something. Like, we pride our system on being configurable and highly responsive in a short time frame. So I hope that was your experience. If not, don't say it on the camera.
Very custom, very unique in the fact that you fit our mold, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So here's what I love. Okay. So we've talked about onboarding in the past and that kind of stuff. So I want to hear about, it all starts with carrier identity. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes. Like I said, man, I've been doing this for a hot minute, and even I thought about it the wrong way. Like, how do I get carriers into my network? And we've actually taken a half a step back and said, maybe that's not the right way to think about it. Maybe the wrong way to think about it is get the packet online, get a cert, everybody gets in. Because then what you have is this big house with a lot of people in it, and you're trying to figure out how to get them out of the house. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. What if we stopped them at the door? But then the onboarding piece becomes really easy, right? So the way I explain it to people is this. When you and I interact with the world, we pull our phone out and we hit sign in with something. Facebook, Google, Amazon, or Apple ID, whatever. To the point that it's actually really strange if we have to go to a website and fill out a form and create a password and enter a credit card. That feels old, because what we do is we just sign in with whatever, all the metadata's there, it's secure, and we can interact with the world that way. So when we think about onboarding, we say no, start with carrier identity. So carrier identity at Highway means three things. One, who is the human being that's coming to Mariner and opening a digital session? Meaning, where are they physically sitting? Like, there are things that we do deep in the code that if a carrier is a certain size and has certain characteristics, we're going to force them to drop their VPN, as an example. Large carriers, they're going to operate
Yep.
behind a VPN, right? So what I want to say, first of all, is it's not one size fits all. We're doing deep work to figure out how to profile carriers and human beings and how do we want to challenge them. So the first step is, who's this human being, right? Where they live, where they sit, how are they going to authenticate? The second thing is, are they actually a motor carrier? Or are they pretending to be somebody with, jackwagon7@gmail.com, right? Like,
Yep.
like there is no
yeah.
loadmariner@gmail.com. That'd be a really weird thing. So Highway would shut that
Right.
down, right? You can't come in with a Gmail address. Or are you a dispatch service? Like, are you actually the motor carrier? And the third piece, and this is what we're really proud of, do you actually have and operate the equipment to do what you tell Mariner you're going to do?
Yep.
So we operate, and we'll probably get into this, off this concept of what is your physical and digital footprint. So think about it this way. When you or anyone else goes and gets their credit report, you don't just get to fill information out and rock and roll. They're going to say, AJ, here's 5 addresses. In 2021, where did you live? They already know. So what we say at Highway is why are we going to ask the carrier things we already know the answer to? We're going to force them to prove who they are. And so much of that has to do with equipment. So we are fanatics about tracking equipment, its movement at the most granular level possible, which is who owns it, where has it been, what's the VIN number? We're decoding VINs. So we want to get as granular and as transparent around that as possible. So that's how we think about carrier identity. Who's the human? Are they actually the entity, and do they have the equipment necessary?
So this is certainly a tech play, obviously,
Yep.
right? We love the technology. There's security and identity protection.
Yep.
But we can't forget about the relationship piece,
Yep.
okay? So there's still, at the core of freight brokerage, there's still a relationship from a shipper to broker and a broker to carrier.
Yep.
What I've found, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit, is that Highway's actually helped us enhance our relationships with our carriers
Okay.
because of this identity piece, and because
Okay.
we really do understand what they want to run. So we found that we can actually offer better freight to carriers after we brought them in via Highway,
Yep.
because there's a sense of knowing where carriers are located.
Yeah, there's confidence, right? So you run operations here, right? So
Yep.
I've run ops, and a lot of what you and I probably had to do is there was a point in time where we quit teaching people how to cover freight, and we taught them to look at 6 websites and ask a whole bunch of questions and try to fish out, why are you trying to give me a different office number? That has nothing to do with covering a load. It's nothing to do with building a relationship, right?
I want carrier reps. I don't want detectives.
Exactly, right? But so one of the things that we sell as a freight broker, right, is career path. And we bring young professionals in with little training, and we onboard them. And that's hard enough. And then we say, oh, by the way, we have these great systems and TMSs and all this stuff. But before you can load a carrier, there's 7 steps you have to follow on a complex decision tree. And if you miss one of them, a load could be stolen, and we're going to fire you for it. That's dumb. There are better ways to do that. And it wears you out, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Because the highest and best use of your time is investing in people, not playing an investigator, right? So go back to the KYC piece, know your customer.
Yep.
How much easier is it for a carrier rep to have peace of mind and say, I know that all of these carriers, I can call them. The other thing that we've shortcutted is, what you and I used to teach people to do is say, hey, you loaded this carrier 5 times from Dallas to Houston. Call them and ask them what else they do. And we built whole scripts on it, right?
100%.
What if they could just look in Highway and go, oh, well, this carrier has 30 other trucks, and this is where they go, and I can look in the Mariner network. Now I can focus on this motor carrier and helping them run more efficiently without having to call and interrogate them.
Absolutely.
Which most load planners, they don't necessarily want to do that, right? Think about human beings, right? Human beings want to feel valued and known. Talk in terms of the other person's interests, like Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? We want to empower brokers to know about their carriers, right? Because the best brokers, they really do care about their carriers. They really do want to help them. It's a tight business, and the best brokers want to work with carriers in a better way, and we help them do that.
Quickest way to get a carrier to tune you out is if you're offering freight that's not in their network. If you've got a regional Southeast carrier that gets on an email list and you're offering them California to Washington, your emails they become useless.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's 2 things that I've seen as a freight broker and that we saw in Highway when we were interviewing carriers and brokers early. is there's a lot of bad data. So oftentimes, self-reported data in an onboarding process is bad. Somebody's just clicking to get through the onboarding process so they can sign the agreement. So then the carrier calls and says, hey, I see you run so-and-so. And they're like, what are you talking about? Never had a truck there ever. Well, you said so. I was just trying to get through that. The other thing they don't like is if they're on a public load board and they're curious about a lane or a price, and some brokers bought the dark capacity feature and starts hounding them, and the carrier's like, what are you talking about? I've never run a truck there ever.
Yep.
Right?
They don't even remember.
Yeah, and the carrier app's just fishing off of some load board feature that's not actually applicable to what that carrier does. That's a waste of time for the carrier rep, right?
Absolutely.
It's like trying to fish without a fish finder. Like, I'm a really bad fisherman. Like, I'm not good at it. You look really outdoorsy. I'm really indoorsy. So I need a fish finder. Like, I need somebody to tell me where the fish are. And that's what Highway does. It tells you where the fish are.
Absolutely. Okay, so we love Highway, okay? But I don't want this to be an ad.
Is there a butt coming?
Well, okay. No, I want to say I don't want this to be an ad for Highway.
Yeah.
That's not what what we're promoting. But we like the product. We found a ton of value.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk a bit more about capacity visibility.
Yeah.
We've touched on it just a hair, but maybe if you could go a little deeper on the capacity visibility piece and some of those features.
Yeah. So there's many times when you're shopping for freight technology, there are often startups or even older companies that have kind of hitched their horse to one wagon. Like, hey, here's the answer. And I think what we found is that in technology, there's never a singular answer. So when we think about visibility, we think about being transparent, right? And we think about like confidence. Like, is there transparency? Can a carrier rep or a broker be confident? And so there's a couple different ways to think about visibility. One, it's just physically and historically, where has that equipment been?
In the old school way of thinking, it's about an inspection.
Yep.
Okay. But traditionally, those inspections have been hard to find where they occur.
Yep.
Highway makes it very visible. Okay, so we know where the state that it was inspected, what type of inspection it was, if there was a violation.
You know who the driver is, the county level, the VIN number.
So just because you have a number of inspections doesn't mean you've been inspected in a certain area. So Highway's brought some visibility there to the inspection piece.
Yeah, so for a long time, people just thought number of trucks, age of authority, number of inspections.
Boom,
done, right?
Yep, for sure.
There's bad actors out there that know that they can go buy an MC number and they can run it clean for 3, 4, 6 months. And they're going to be able to get in those basic onboarding gates.
Yep.
Oh, has trucks, has inspections.
We've even heard of carriers driving empty around way stations trying to get inspections to just get that inspection on their list.
It's really popular, especially like in local markets and dray businesses. Like dray carriers will inspect the same truck 5 times trying to get there. Like we're seeing all this, right? Like they have figured out how to hack the onboarding process, right? Here's what I need to be able to get in.
Yep.
Right, and so you see a guy with 4 trucks and enough inspections getting into networks, and then we can get into the load limit a little bit too. But this broker thinks I'm getting all 4 of the trucks. Well, 10 brokers think they're getting all 4 of the trucks, and the guy's double brokering. So back to what you're saying is it's about equipment visibility. But if the carrier has what we would call a low digital and physical footprint, we're not interested in what the carrier says. We're interested in what can be proven. Okay?
Absolutely.
We have a couple of different ways that we can allow a carrier to connect with a broker and display, hey, here's my trucks. Here's where they are. Here's where they've been. I'm going to prove to you that I have equipment. Right? And so we're going to fail that carrier and challenge them and say, look, man, one of 2 things is happening here. You either don't have the physical and digital footprint to support your claim, or you have a scheduled auto policy and you have way more trucks being inspected than you have listed. Those are typically the 2 instances where you want more information. Is that fair?
Yep.
Like if we were to go grab a carrier, based in Dallas with a bunch of warehouses and a terminal in Mississippi, like we can see that truck, right? Like,
hey, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, we don't need them to prove anything. But like a 6-truck carrier with no history, like you're going to want to know where that is. Vice versa, a 4-truck carrier with 4 scheduled autos with 20 trucks being inspected, that's a problem. Who's insuring those 16 other trucks, right? But we have a way for a carrier to self-heal that. It's not based on having a tough conversation and the carrier trying to sell a carrier rep why they're a good guy.
I like how Highway kind of right sizes contacts for carriers as well.
Okay.
So, one thing I'm sure you've seen is, hey, this is a one truck operation that's got 5 dispatchers. That doesn't make any sense. And Highway really kind of exposes that.
Because they're brokers.
Because they're brokers.
They're brokers.
100%.
Right. Oh, they're trip leased. Okay, great. So, we've heard it all.
For
It's
sure.
like, look, man, heal this. Like, just,
Yep.
there's a connection button here. You can show us what's going on. It's over real quick.
Absolutely.
And what we've seen
Super
is
helpful.
for carriers that do that, they're actually working with brokers in a better way. It's actually cutting a lot of noise out of their network.
No doubt about it.
Like no carrier wants to get flooded with phone calls.
We went all the way and shut down everybody and made every carrier onboard.
Yeah, got it. So let me ask you, right?
Yep,
So
sure.
not a highway
Come on.
ad. Like one of my favorite things to do is sit with brokers because brokers are my friends. It's what, it's all I've done. What's it been like for you? Did you find something surprising? Did you find things, this wasn't so great, like this was better than I thought it would be? I really enjoy learning from folks that have gone recent. And then the other thing I would say too, and I specifically sought out Scott early because we've been friends for a long time. I specifically wanted to get this in the hands of Mariner because I know kind of the way you folks are thinking about the future.
Yep.
And so I said, man, use this, beat it up. Help us make it better.
Absolutely.
And that's the way we think about the world. So I'd love your feedback.
Sure.
And
I
that's
think,
not on the script.
I think we've been a great partner and really, Highway's super open for us to share ideas and back and forth. And I can get a hold of my contacts at Highway anytime. I've gotten emails from Heather at 10:30 at night on something that she needed to get back to me. So real appreciative there. I would say the first thing is with the move to Highway is it forced us to analyze our carrier network. Okay. And what that means is, man, when you're in the day-to-day of the business and the minutia of moving freight and you've got 30 loads you've got to get covered today, is you got to get your freight covered.
Okay.
What we were able to do is kind of take a step back and say, here's what Highway recommends and here's why, okay? And everything else that's in our carrier book of business is just kind of noise.
Yep.
And it really kind of took that push from Highway a little bit to get us to take that time and do that carrier analysis.
Okay.
So super helpful there. Certainly were carriers in our network that we were using that we probably shouldn't have been.
Yep.
We found that. We've got all of our safeguards in place and haven't had issues with those carriers, but it kind of forced us to take a second look.
Yeah.
Now we move our freight with confidence, and we work with our carriers with confidence, and I think that's huge. And it's really just that security, the identity piece, peace of mind. Is really, really nice.
Yeah, because it's the one load that gets you, right?
It could be one load.
It's the one.
It could be one load.
The story I tell, I was running a business in Chattanooga. I'd taken over as president of that business. I had it for 3 months when I lost my second biggest account because there was a carrier railing the loads, and they did a really good job. They serviced it really well. They had this trick where they were moving the bolt seal around.
I've heard it all.
Highway would have failed that carrier
Yep.
because they'd have seen inspections in Chicago,
And
inspections
Southern
in
California.
LA, and nothing in between.
How is
Right?
that possible?
And not enough equipment to actually do and hit the relays that they were saying they were going to do for us.
If you're moving that type of volume, you would be inspected in Colorado,
Yeah.
Utah, somewhere in between.
They moved 5 loads for us. They were the type of loads that definitely did not need to be transloaded.
We've seen those for sure.
And margin, like net revenue, the way that we pay bills, it was a
Yep.
$100,000 a month account, man. Like,
That's a huge blow.
welcome to this business.
That is a huge
blow.
blow.
Like, it was a huge deal.
Yep.
And it's one carrier, man. And as my best carrier rep, he missed one step
Yep.
in looking at the website and felt like, and it cost us $1 million a year. It's a big deal. It's one not even bad decision. It's like an accidental miss. And so we believe in automating that for people. Like, if we can get the computer to do it, take the mental load off the human.
Yep.
So that humans can do what only humans can do.
Yeah,
Just build relationships with people.
We tighten up our rule sets.
Okay.
You do not tender a load to a carrier if their email address does not match what's on file in Highway.
Yeah.
No question about it. Don't ask me.
So
That's how we do it.
One of the things we're really proud of, you mentioned email addresses. One of the things we started seeing was we were really good at doing what we call building a firewall around your network. Like, you don't operate your cyber network without a firewall. We are the firewall for your carrier network. And then what we were seeing is that every now and then, somebody would hit a carrier rep's inbox. And a carrier rep would circumvent a process and just send something to an email address. So we built an Outlook plugin. So if you guys don't have it yet.
No, we don't.
Okay, well, we can do that. Like, we're getting approved in the Microsoft Store. It's going to be available for download soon. A few people have it on beta. And what it does is it lives in your inbox, and there's an extension, and it's Highway in your Outlook. And so if somebody's coming in and they change one letter, they change the I in Mariner to a 1 to make it look, Highway's going to flag that and say, this looks fraudulent, it doesn't match. It shuts it down in the inbox. So every day, the reason I bring that up is every day we learn something. And our mission is to take customer feedback and build a solution to keep shutting it down.
Yep.
Because until we clean it up, you can't really optimize your network.
That's value outside of just carriers.
Yep.
There's a ton of value add there for all kinds of different fraud, not to mention it just inside of the freight industry.
Yeah.
The type of fraud you see every day.
Yeah, and if you think about it, small motor carriers, call it less than 10 trucks, which is the majority of the market.
Yep.
They're the ones that are targeted. So Highway does as much to protect that carrier as the broker.
It's a huge benefit to a carrier too.
If we can stop someone from stealing that carrier's
If you want to be a good carrier, Highway helps you be a good carrier.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you want to focus on the brokers you want to do business with, Highway can help you do that. If you want to cut the noise out from load boards, like if you're a carrier, man, come claim your identity in Highway. Like, you're gonna have a much better experience. Like, it's just a better overall experience for them.
Everybody wants to talk integrations and APIs and all that good stuff. What are some of the upcoming integrations that you have, and where have you found success maybe integrating with some of your various customers and vendor partners?
The challenge we have at Highway right now is we've grown so fast and are continuing to grow so fast. We have a lot of integration requests, and so we're focused really heavily on the ones that add the most value to freight brokers.
Okay.
So squarely, we're focused on integrating with the largest TMSs and making sure that those are very, very stable.
Okay.
And so in all of those, there's a very kind of version 1 feel of an integration. Kind of your red light, green light carrier, things like that. Well, for you guys, we're scoping like, okay, now how do we allow Mariner to use classifications? And then how do we feed that classification information into the TMS so that that workflow then becomes automated? So kind of number 1 focus is TMS integrations, getting everyone live and stable on their biggest and favorite TMS, and then iterating into kind of version 2 with what additional data does Highway have that other providers don't, that a broker now wants in the TMS. I would say that's one. The second piece is because of the way that we allow our single sign-on solution, and a carrier can hit sign on with Highway and now be connected to brokers, there's a lot of exploration around how else does a carrier want to interact with brokers.
You bet.
So I can't say that we're releasing anything soon, but here's some of the things we're curious about. Should a carrier be able to buy per transaction insurance in Highway?
Okay.
It's a $100,000 load. They need $250,000 worth of cargo. They're there. They're connected. Factors are looking at us to help shortcut their underwriting process, providing a single sign-on solution. We monitor the insurance certificate. We show discrepancy in scheduled autos. So there's a lot of curiosity, I would say, in the marketplace just around what else could happen here.
Sure.
But man, our number 1 focus is providing stability and stable connections for brokers in the TMS. That's kind of today. Now, from a partnership perspective, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about load limit.
Okay.
That's our partnership with TriumphPay. And one of the interesting things that we found is that a broker could look at a motor carrier, and before they were looking at the MCS 150 form and going, oh, they got 10 trucks, I'm loading them this much, I'm probably safe. Then we introduced observed equipment versus reported equipment and turned some lights on and say, hey, this carrier's reporting this, but they only have this. Or they're actually having more inspected than what's reported on their insurance. That was kind of the second light. The third piece that's our partnership with TriumphPay is really interesting. With load limit, TriumphPay sees or pays about $25, $30 billion in freight broker payments.
Okay. A little bit of data.
A little bit of data. And we know where the equipment is. So we can look at a carrier and go, hey, this guy's got 10 trucks. he's got enough freight payments going through TriumphPay for 50 trucks. Something's wrong. Right? 2,500 billable miles a week, right? On a truck, like just kind of 500 miles a day, just as the baseline. Well, a 10 truck carrier, when they have more billable miles than a 50 truck carrier, well, there's a problem there. They're double brokering the freight. Something's going on.
Something weird.
So that's a really exciting partnership that we have that allows you as a 3PL to go, not just how is this carrier interacting with me, but how are they interacting with the marketplace? And what decision do I want to make based on what I see about them in the broader marketplace? And that's real data. It's not reported data, that's real.
Do you plan to offer a suggestion? Load limit? A suggestion on the number of loads that they possibly should be running?
Well, I think that's what we say. We set a baseline, and then they're over or under that utilization, right?
And then it's up to us to make a decision from there.
It's just something like, so like what I tell brokers, like, look, if you've if small carrier and they're approaching 70 to 80% of load limit, you should probably slow down and ask them a question, because Triumph doesn't pay everybody's bills. So if they're 80% utilized on that set of data, probably slow them down. But man, what we're really seeing the value is carriers that are 110, 600, 700% utilized. Like, come on, man. Like, this is egregious, fraudulent, double brokering.
You bet.
And that's a just yes, no. Like, just in the workflow, it's configurable, turn the carrier off.
So I'm going to throw you for a loop potentially here.
Let's go.
Okay, so we're talking integrations. What type of integrations might be in the works with insurance companies?
I don't know. Like insurance companies.
So to set this up,
yeah.
You know, as we know, our COI process can still be a little bit antiquated. You know, we rely on a human to send an email.
Yep.
Is there a world where Highway might integrate within a large insurance company for automated certificate of insurance sends?
Without having entirely another podcast about insurance, which for everybody listening, I know this much about freight brokering and this much about insurance, so disclaimer. There's a lot of layers in that business, man. So you've got insurance markets, which is like travelers, right? They're a market. And then you've got agents, right? Like, like a McGriff or a Reliance, right? And like the agents produce a certificate. And so what we're finding is there isn't one place to go where all this lives. Like exclusions, like everybody asks about, like exclusions live deep in the policy, and there's all these if-then statements. Well, it's an exclusion if this happens, but it's not an exclusion if this, like, right? And so, man, I think what we're really focused on is getting the limits right, getting the equipment right, and just staying up to date on those certs as much as possible. And that's kind of the best we can do right now. We try to automate our certificate management process as much as possible, but integrations with insurance markets directly are really difficult.
Sure.
My hope is this, that I went to the cargo theft conference that TAPA does here in Dallas a few weeks ago. And what I would tell you is that insurance companies, because of the they don't want to pay claims, right? And I go to this conference and the message was, fraud is bad, theft is bad, it's getting worse. And I kept waiting for the solution and there wasn't one.
It's a statement.
Yep, and it's like, okay. And so what I would say is the insurance markets are getting very curious about how they can better work with a platform like ours to help freight brokers. But before Highway, there was an option. Everything was just about getting an insurance certificate and checking a box.
Yep.
So I can't give you any promises, but man, the conversations are fun.
Sure.
And the industry, I think, is beginning to come around, realizing that there needs to be more collaboration. That's the thing about Highway, man. Like, one of the things that we say to brokers is you're the network. Highway really wants to disappear once the carrier and the broker connection is established. Like, if you never come to our website again and we can feed everything to your TMS, if the carrier there's not a carrier portal. It's sign in with Highway, connect with the broker. So anything we can do to better optimize that network, optimize that connection, that's what we're about.
Not that the UI isn't great.
No, it is great. It is great. We say it's a demo for our API.
But if we're talking to your brokers out there, 99% of your brokers, they want to work inside of their TMS. That's the primary. Okay.
Man, AJ, brokers have screen fatigue. They don't need another website.
You bet. Absolutely.
The last thing a freight broker needs is another website. Oh,
monitor fatigue, it's a thing.
Where was that in Chrome? Where do I need, like, the
No doubt
last
about
thing
it.
a freight broker needs is another website, man.
All right, so let's do this. Let's get your crystal ball out.
Okay.
So the data you aggregate, the number of carriers that you see come into the platform, market conditions, that kind of stuff. Okay, let's throw that all together. What do you see the next 6, 12 months or so freight industry, market, rates, capacity.
Yeah,
Cover
like,
trucks.
I mean, every time I try to make a prediction, it's wrong. I don't need anybody on LinkedIn telling me I'm an idiot. What I do think is there will be some type of correction, right? And so we've seen this a lot where, is there a driver shortage or is there, I don't know, man. You know, we saw all these new MC numbers. Were they new MCs or were they just drivers leaving, you know, the big five and going and getting, I don't know. I do think a couple of things will happen. I think as highway continues to grow and more brokers become really serious about managing security, you're going to see the market split into transparent, safe, digitally enabled markets and pockets where bad actors can still operate. Here's what I tell you won't happen, because somebody said this the other day. Well, we think fraud's gonna, you know, kind of, I'm like, no. Like, do you think criminals that have been making all this money are just gonna be like, well, I guess we'll stop? Like, no, this is organized crime. They're going to keep trying to find vulnerable places where they can do their bad things and make money. They're not gonna stop. And as freight keeps going down and it's not as easy to just get in somebody's network because it's, oh my God, everything's on fire, I just need a truck, they're gonna get worse. And so you're gonna see people come to highway, get that all cleaned up, and you're gonna see these little pockets out there, and I think you're gonna see the fraud gravitate toward those places. And that's what I think you'll see. And I'm hopeful that we can help purge a lot of that from the marketplace.
Yep. Mariner is very keen and intent on transparency. We've even done customer meetings where we bring our carrier into the customer. And that's pretty radical for a freight broker, but we think transparency is that important. We really do. So,
yeah.
Well, guys, thank you. Michael Caney, Highway, AJ DeGroot, Mariner. Appreciate you coming and tuning in to another episode of Future Ready Freight. We'll see you.